welcome to episode 21 of the Galactic Windows Space Podcast. My name is Nick. I'm sometimes known as the Orbital Alliance.
And I'm Tan, also known as Chasing the Milk.
What's going on? I see we had an early entry here because I forgot to switch the video. So I'm going to drop out our guest here real quick so we don't spoil everything. But say everybody wave to to Nate, who's our guest here tonight. I'm going to rewind the clock here and get things introed the right way. So we'll bring you right back in a second, Nate. Hey, Tan.
Hey, what's up?
Yo.
That was like a glitch in the Matrix.
It was. It really was.
Dang, bro.
Yeah.
Pumped.
I'm pumped. Dude, episode 21.
21, that's crazy. How did we get here?
I don't know, but we can legally purchase adult beverages now.
Oh, nice. I'm excited. Yeah, welcome in, guys. If you guys are coming over on the talk, hello. I'm streaming from there, but you won't be able to chat, or I won't be able to see your comments. But if you guys do want to hang out, come over to YouTube. It's just the Galactic window. So welcome in.
Yeah, dude. It's been quite the comedy week, right, dude? We've been seeing all kinds of stellar things flying through the sky, and it's been a fun week for astronomy.
I feel like we've been pretty spoiled. So like I'm so backlogged on data because we just had the Northern Lights, which was an absolute spectacular show, and then we had the comet, full moon. So yeah, a lot of stuff happening right now.
Yes. It's been eventful, and it's keeping us on our toes, and it's making me feel like any night that there's something not going on, then I have massive FOMO for a cool celestial event.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's been a hot second since we've had a guest on the show, right? Like it's been, I think about a month or so, maybe a little bit more than that. And I'm excited, dude, for our guest tonight. Are you?
Yeah, I am pumped. It's like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited, dude. I'm just used to talking to you. I'm like, oh, now there's going to be a third person in here. So, really excited for you guys to meet this person as well. It's just, yeah, man, it's going to be a good show. So grab your snacks, grab some drinks, and get comfy.
Get so comfy, everybody. Here we go. Let's introduce our guest for the night. Here we go. Tonight, we're welcoming Nathan Price to the Galactic Window. Nate is also known as GadgetNate on social media, and he's also the founder of the Countdown to the Moon project, which he started in 2019 as an effort to document people's awareness and interest in humanity's return to the moon via NASA's Artemis program. Nate's been interviewing people daily since he started the project, and he's continuing it all the way through the end of 2024. Nate also happened to start the North Houston Space Society chapter, helping people get educated about space and astronomy in his local community. Nate's lifelong passion for space and computers led him to his current position that he has right now in flight operations at Mission Control Center in Houston, supporting the International Space Station. Pretty cool. So without further ado, let's get into the conversation with GadgetNate. All right, we've done it right this time. Oh man, welcome Nate to the show. The Galactic Windows Space Podcast is so happy to have you. Thanks for coming by tonight.
Well, thanks for having me. It's one thing with my project, the Countdown to the Moon project. People are like, is it a podcast? What is it? I'm like, no, it's nothing as serious as that. I mean, this is a serious podcast right here, So my project is just informally talking to people. So I'm like, podcasts are a whole different level. So it's a great honor to be here. And y'all have a remarkable setup.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, I like to think of your interviews as like micro podcasts. So I think we're all in the same neighborhood, right?
Yeah, they're like chiclets, podcast chiclets or something. Like little small bite-sized podcasts.
Totally. Fair enough. Well, really quick, we just want to say hello to everybody who's shown up here in the live stream chat on YouTube and over for other folks over on TikTok. Thanks for saying hello in the chat. Say hi. Let us know you're here. It's good to see a lot of our friends coming back and supporting the program. Let's let's see here. Cool. So Nate, I got to know you kind of randomly on X, formerly known as Twitter, a couple of years ago. I'm not really sure where the exact moment was. I remember seeing your posts there, and seeing you talk about your project Countdown to the Moon, and me being like, wow, that's really cool. Like, I love that there's somebody doing this. And I want to have you have a chance here to kind of explain what that is. But we'll get to that in a little bit, but I kind of just give a little bit of context for our connection here. And it wasn't long before you reached out to me and invited me to be interviewed in your project. But want to just like rewind that for a second here and get to know you just a little bit. You want to share a little bit about yourself in the general sense so the people in our audience can get a taste for who you are?
Sure, that'd be fine. Well, my background's actually in IT, technology. Whenever I started my career, the internet was just taking off. I graduated from high school in 1994, which was the same year that Amazon was founded, the same year that Mozilla, well, it wasn't Mozilla at the time, it was Netscape, released their browser. And the internet was really just being made available in a commercial way. You know, that's like the beginning of the dot-com boom. And at that time, there was not so many people that was familiar with the internet or with web design or programming and that type of thing. And essentially, anybody who knew anything, I mean, if you knew how to turn on a computer, they needed you. And it was an exciting time to be in computers. And, you know, just the great potential of actually, I mean, it's amazing to think of how much things have changed. I mean, used to, when you got a printer or, you know, needed to update your driver for your video camera or whatever, I mean, you would literally have to go order a disk and have it mailed to you and then, you know, install it on your computer. Of course, that meant that you weren't vulnerable to viruses in the same way that we are now. But, you know, just connecting computers together is something we take so for granted today. I mean, we're like constantly connected to each other. But back then, you know, most of the connections were over landlines. You know, you would have people actually called places instead of people, which is something that I think we forgot. And people would actually take their computer and hook it up to their phone to call other computers, and that's the way that we got connected. It's really interesting to think about how things have changed. But once you get a job in one area, getting the next job in that area is just natural. And once you have experience, then you know that just kind of your career goes with that industry and stuff. So. Well, me and my friends were really big and interested in space exploration in high school and college as well. But compared to the internet at the time, you know, there was really no competition, and you had to be, you know, really skilled and degreed and credentialed in order to get a job in space. Not like you had to do that with computers and internet. So the interest in space kind of, you know, got pushed to the side in favor of computers and the internet and kids and family and just going through life. And then SpaceX arrived on the scene and started reusing rockets and started talking about, you know, tons of mass to orbit, to the surface of the moon, to Mars, this interplanetary transportation system. I mean, actually, even in 2016, Elon Musk was a speaker at the International Astronautical Congress in Guadalajara. And, you know, me and my family, we flew down there to go watch him. And we had hooked up with a whole bunch of SpaceX, this Reddit SpaceX group, and we were able to actually get seats like 3 rows from the stage. It was like, we were like right there in the VIP section. It's kind of neat. But I mean, just seeing, and then, you know, you saw the booster catch last Sunday, which is kind of interesting. That was the first day of this year's IAC in Milan, which SpaceX didn't really have a presence there, but I guarantee you everybody was talking about, or is is talking about that now. But anyway, so now that sort of the computer career ran its course, I'm now pursuing kind of my interest in space a little bit more. It started out more as a hobby. You mentioned the North Houston Space Society, so I wanted to get a network with people locally who were interested in space, and get them together regularly to kind of share information and have guest speakers and maybe do more community outreach. And then, in 2019, we had that, what was it? I think it was like Artemis Day, they called it. It was like core stage complete for the Artemis 1 booster. And there was Associate Administrator Doug Laverio, who was, it was his first real kind of big public engagement. And he was tasked with getting astronauts on the moon by the end of 2024. And, that's a pretty tight schedule considering the way NASA's been running. So he had a lapel pin with the number of days to the end of 2024, and he was going around highlighting a NASA person a day. Maybe it was an accountant, a business person, a technician, instructor, a welder, engineer, a scientist, a manager, something like that. And that was the genesis of my project as well. I was like, wow, that's a cool idea, but maybe we kind of need to document like just regular everyday people's views. And when I started the project in 2019, I was planning to do all the interviews in person, and then March 2020 came along.
Yep.
And that kind of forced me to start reaching out online. First of all, going up to random people at Starbucks and on the side of the street, asking them what they think about NASA going back to the moon is already sketchy to begin with, but doing that in a pandemic is a whole new level. So that's when I started reaching out online, and that's, how you and I kind of got there. I had 1,840 days to go to the end of 2024. I did an interview every single day. Now I have like 70 days or so to go, and haven't missed a day yet. There's some days that came very, very, very close. We could talk about those. They're kind of funny and how they worked out. But we're not going to land on the moon this year. I don't see that happening. But my project will end at the end of this year. So I'm kind of happy and sad about that.
Dude, thank you for giving us the rundown and sharing all the amazing chapters of your life that have led you to this cool project. I love to see the flow of how the dots connect over time, and it's led you to a really remarkable place working on this. And I definitely can't wait to get more into it. But thank you for sharing, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been an exciting journey. Yeah. Well, what would you like to talk about?
Yes, absolutely. Tan, do you want to queue up our little next segment here that we've been talking about?
Yeah. So this is a little game that we're gonna try out. It's called Lightspeed, and in short, we're just gonna ask you a bunch of questions, and you just answer as fast as you can. There's no right or wrong. Just an answer is better than no answer. So, for example, if I say like Coke or Pepsi, and you don't drink either of them, just pick one. But it's a good way for us to kind of loosen up a little bit, and then also give a chance for our audience to kind of get to know you as well.
It's kind of scary though, because everybody starts putting you in boxes based on those answers too. So
no worries, there aren't any crazy curveballs. So
yeah, it's okay. We want to make sure this is a safe space. So whether you're a Coke or Pepsi person, nobody's gonna get shamed tonight. That's not how we roll. So don't worry.
All right, shall we get started?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll start it off here. Nate, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Beaches or mountains?
Beaches.
Ooh, nice.
Netflix or YouTube?
Okay. Do you like to text or phone call people?
Phone call.
All right. Would you rather cook at home or dine out?
Dine out.
White meat or dark meat?
Dark meat.
Yes.
My man.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's the answer I was looking for. Good man.
Be stuck in space or in the ocean?
In the ocean.
Would you rather read minds or be invisible?
Be invisible.
Change the past or see into the future?
Oh, goodness. See into the future.
Burger or chicken sandwich?
Burger.
All right. Would you rather live in a world without music or without movies?
Without music.
Jupiter or Saturn?
Saturn.
Nice.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Morning person.
Ooh, morning person. Nice. Telescope or binoculars?
Telescope.
RVs or Lion's Choice?
Oh, what's that last part?
RVs or Lion's Choice?
I don't even know what Lion's Choice is. What is?
Oh, no way.
I don't either.
Oh,
So I guess RVs then.
for some reason I thought everyone knew what Lion's Choice was. Very nice. RVs is good.
That's a good answer. Okay, heavy hitter. Time travel or space travel?
Space travel.
Good man. Do you have any final ones here, Tan?
How about the Orion constellation or Cassiopeia?
Orion.
Ooh, okay.
Good choice.
Very good,
Yeah.
very good, very good. Sweet. Well, those are what we got for tonight. This is a fun little way to kick things off. Thanks for
Wasn't so bad, was it?
Thanks for participating and dealing with our shenanigans for a hot second there. Oh man. Well, I gotta say though, the dark meat though, that's good stuff. It's the way to go. When you eat turkey, do you get a big turkey leg?
Oh yeah, definitely. Turkey leg, turkey wing. You know what? This kind of reminds me of something that I so at NASA, it's kind of cool. We get to go to like these all hand meetings, and we have like the ISS program person there, and I think she is relatively new to the position because they did a similar type of game with her deputy, and somebody else. I think one of the questions was, would you prefer to walk to work in high heels or drive in a car backwards in reverse? And, like questions like that is like, so I feel like I got off easy on this.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a much lower stakes scenario. Oh my goodness. Yeah, dude. Well, I feel like what would be cool is to kind of hear a little bit more detail about your adventure with Countdown to the Moon. So you started this in 2019. It's a project that's a personal project, as you shared, and you've had the chance to talk to. What's the total number of days you've succeeded on so far?
Okay, so started out with 1,840 days to go. I got 76 more interviews to do. So that comes out to be 1,764. Come on, public math. Okay, but anyway.
Wow.
So that's how many interviews I've done. And some of those interviews included multiple people, so it's more than that. And not everybody says yes when you go and ask them. Oddly enough, you approach a random person, you're like, hey, I'm working on this project. Their immediate thought, I think, probably, and I've talked to some people, is you're trying to sell them something, you're trying to scam them, you're trying to either sell them something like economically or politically or religiously or culturally or something like that. So breaking through that bubble has been the hardest, and kind of dealing with my own perception of their perception has been quite a learning experience, because it's like, no, really, it's a cool project. No, they've already tuned out at that point. much like difficult. But so when I started the project, first I went through all my family, then I went through all my friends, then I started going through friends of family, and then started going through family of friends, and then it kind of worked out like that, right? But
Nice.
during this project, I traveled to Minneapolis, to York, England, to New York, to California, to Mexico, and I want to say a couple of other places too. And I got to interview people at all these different places. It's really interesting on the airplane. Some people get the lucky seat next to me. Like, yeah, it's awkward when they say no. Sometimes I wait until like towards the end of the flight, but I gotta time it just right because it needs to be enough time before landing. But it can be awkward if you're like sitting next to them the whole flight after they just told you no, they want to participate in your project. But some of them have been kind of fun. There was one guy who was walking around a shopping mall with a chicken, a live chicken.
What?
Like, yeah. And I was like, he would definitely do it. He would definitely do it. I mean, this guy honestly was just crying out to be asked about his opinion about the moon. That's the sign, guys. If you want to be asked about your opinion about the moon, you walk around with a live chicken. That's the signal.
Well, if I was there next to you that day and you were contemplating asking this guy to do an interview, I would have just looked at you and said, "Come on, don't be a chicken." And that there it is. Yeah, I was waiting for it, man. I was like, bump set and spike. Oh, that's wild.
One challenge with my project is I often talk to people that have very different views and opinions than I do. Like I have talked to people, flat earthers, Apollo deniers, people who think going to space is a complete waste of time and money. And I try to always approach it from a point of curiosity as opposed of judgment, and try to find out. I mean, these people I actually would like to talk to kind of deeper just to see, how do they end up with their viewpoint. I always find that kind of fascinating. There's this one interview that I really remember right before a flight. I ended up getting on the plane with him. His name was Jonah. You might want to look it up sometime. But it's like, NASA's liars, we never went to the moon and all this. And he's like visibly shaking. Like he was like absolutely having some type of emotional reaction to
Wow.
kind of questions. And, I didn't quite know where to go with that. But I thought that was interesting and then also one time at the airport, always have these fun, I saw somebody wearing a SpaceX shirt. And I was like, oh, you're into space. I mean, if you have a NASA shirt, you're fair game. Some space shirt, you're like, whoa, nice shirt. And then next thing you know, it's an interview for my project. And he actually was an accountant at SpaceX. And I participated, and it was really a really fun interview. So that's been kind of neat. I
got a question for you, Nate. If we can go back a little bit, because I'm just really fascinated with the whole idea of interviewing someone every day and not even missing a single day. That right there to me that's a lot of discipline. So my question is, was there ever a point where it could be challenging? Like, let's say this day you're like, man, I don't know if I could do it. What are some of the challenges that you face whenever you are trying to stay on track or schedule?
Yeah, there have been lots of days when it's challenging because you wake up, you have just enough time to get to work, you work all day, then immediately after work you have like responsibilities and things you have to do, and next thing you know it's 11 o'clock at night and you're like, oh, what do I do? And so, I'm in Texas. So my first thought is, okay, it's 11 o'clock here, but it's 9 o'clock in California. So I'm like, who do I know in California? So I've interviewed all my California friends at this point, pretty much. I think I have a couple more. Or you go out to Twitter and you're like, hey, I really need some help interviewing somebody. Actually, it's kind of interesting. Back in 2022, my dad was actually in the hospital. Ultimately, he would die in like a few days of this event. But there's like this one day, I hadn't interviewed anybody. I had asked a couple of the people at the hospital and just felt awkward and weird and didn't work out. But I went online. I was like, hey, really need somebody to interview, and it's like midnight. I was like, oh, I missed the day. But there's this guy in the mountain time zone, and he's like, oh, it's still 11 here. I'm so taking that. I am doing that. So he's like saved my project, because I was like, this is I was in a bad space mentally already because of the family situation, and I was just like, this is the end of the project. It dies here. Because it just feels like you miss the day. It's just like
Yeah.
But it worked out. So now I'm within striking distance of the finish line, and that's good. And also, I got in touch with Doug Laverio, the guy that kind of inspired my project, and he's agreed to do an interview. I just working on the timing, so I feel like that's really exciting. Love to see what his reaction is to my project, since he was kind of the thing that started it.
I mean, that's like the pinnacle interview, is it not? Like that's like the crown jewel of the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I definitely, it's almost feel like saving him for like the last one, just to be like, okay, and now let's end where it started, type of thing.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. So you mentioned when you first started, you kind of had this, I guess, like a warm market, right? Like your family, friends of family. I guess, at what point would you say you started getting, I guess, becoming more comfortable? I'd imagine your first interview compared to your last one. I'd imagine it's probably a little different in terms of just your skills and how you approach people. So, at what point would you say that you're like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this. Like, I know what I need to do, and I can just do it pretty effectively.
I would like to say I got to that point, but I'm not quite there yet. What I have realized, though, is it doesn't matter how many no's you get. You only need one yes. And I think that's the key realization for me, is that I done, like, somebody telling me no, that they're not interested. I'd be like trying to oversell them, like, you should be interested. This is like a cool project. It's like, and seriously, I'm not going to scam you. I'm not selling you anything. That type of thing. But one thing I've really realized is that it's just not everybody's cup of tea, and that's absolutely fine. And it may not be a good fit that day. They don't know you. Lately, over the past year and a half, my wife and I have taken up pickleball. So
Nice.
the
Pickleball is awesome.
It is fantastic. In fact, I was playing pickleball right before this interview too, and I was feeling really good too. So, but lately, so the pickleball community's views on us going back to the moon are probably over documented in my project, just because it's easier to kind of approach somebody about your project once you've kind of have some other relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like that pre-connection, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're like, hey, we just had fun playing pickleball. Sure, I'd love to hear about your project. It's not always. Some people are like, they don't want to be filmed. They don't want to. They have views, and they don't want to necessarily put their views in a form where other people will see them and react to them. Like, I mean, I think it's totally fair to have views and not need to defend them to the world. And obviously, whenever you get them on videotape, they're like, oh. I didn't know you thought the earth was flat. and then suddenly, that's every conversation anybody ever has with them is about that. And they're not sailors. They don't have to worry about longitude and latitude. They don't need to, they're just walking from their house to the supermarket, and a flat world versus a round world that has no effect on their lives, because, they're not putting satellites in orbit, and they don't have to. It's not a concern for them. So that's fine. We all have different scopes of. We all need different scopes of knowledge to go about our lives and do the things that we do. There's lots of things that I'm ignorant in that people probably think are ridiculous, but I learn what I need to when I need to, and that's true with the things that you and I love too about space and astronomy and everything else. And so I think the big thing that there's this one pickleball player I play with all the time, and he's like, we didn't go back to the moon and stuff, and he's like says it jokingly, but he also kind of means it too. And it's like he's already pretty much made it clear he can't be convinced, and it's like this funny thing, and she's like, no, it's fine, whatever. What you believe. I saw a bumper sticker the other day. It says, "Science is true whether you believe in it or not." But it's not really science is true. It's like the world exists independent of our beliefs. Our beliefs kind of mediate our perception of the world, and to the degree that our beliefs line up with the actual world, we could avoid from like running into walls or falling off of cliffs and stuff like that. But it's okay to have misconceptions. You don't. I think I saw XKCD. You're familiar with that comic? I think everybody is.
Oh, it's been a long time, but yes.
Yeah, I love that comic strip. And the husband's on the computer and the wife's like, "Hey, come to bed," and he's like, "No, I can't. Somebody's wrong on the internet." It's like,
Yep. What is it? Keyboard warriors is the term these days.
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Nate, I'm curious. Has there been an interview where maybe someone had just complete opposite beliefs, right? Maybe an anti science or globe denier or whatever, and maybe they had a change of heart, or at least maybe they were open to kind of hearing more. Has that happened?
I would say no. And I would say largely I try to avoid that because, this is not a marketing project. It's more of a documentation project. And so, and it also is a little bit biased towards pro space people. First of all, they're more likely to say yes to an interview. And also, I think the vast majority of people I talk to really have no strong feelings on it and try to be sociable. And in that context, they generally reflect the enthusiasms of the person that they're talking to some degree. But people who have strong views that other direction, I am more interested in how they got to their views than trying to get their views to line up with mine. Kind of. I see. I think that's kind of like more interesting type of thing, because out of the 8 billion people in the world, I'm probably going to only talk to max 10,000. So it's like, I can't, like, every different voice gives me a better chance of sort of understanding a bigger swath of that set of people that I can't talk to. And so that's kind of like how I think about it.
That's amazing. And a really, like, that's true journalism. Like, it's journalism at its core is seeking the documentation of what exists instead of trying to skew it. I love your stance on it.
Yeah. I want to shape it and change it, but just not through this project. This project is trying to understand it. I would like to see us have a 1 million person city on Mars by 2050. That's kind of like, to put it down. But in order to get there, you're going to need to get a certain number of people that think that's a good idea and kind of understanding what views are out there that are naturally kind of in line with that vision versus those views that would actively oppose it and try to figure out some way to kind of get the right number right around the support. You do not need everybody to support a project. You need a certain number of people to support a project. And so it's like, work with the willing, find the willing, connect them together, and kind of make it happen. Sort of the thought.
That's so cool. Just the amount of people you talk to every day, all the stories you hear. What are some of the things that you've learned on this journey? Because what was the total amount of interviews again?
It's about 1,700.
1,700 interviews. We're on episode 21. And I sometimes have a hard time. I'm like, oh my God, we got a guest. We're number 21. That's a lot. So what are some of the things that you've kind of just learned from talking to people from all over the country?
I would say the first thing is people are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. I mean, it sounds like I think people are dumb whenever I say that, but what I mean to say is people are smart and they can kind of reason and put together facts. And I think the problem is that people are generally being asked the wrong questions. Like they are being asked to, change the long distance telephone provider, or, vote for this candidate or that, very, very kind of litmus test type of questions, as opposed to kind of like those more generative type of questions, like where do you see humanity in 200 years? People have answers to that, and those answers are really interesting and kind of logical in the context of the information that they're working with and the values that they have and things like that. And I think the number one thing I've learned from this project is that a dialogue and discussion and kind of thinking about where things could go and a kind of like a positive future. I think people would be a lot more into I need to be engaged in that level, and to a large extent they're not. I mean, if you just look at this election cycle, it comes to, your biggest contribution is not your vote. It's how you live your life daily and the people you interact with, and kind of, things like this podcast, and kind of bringing people together and having discussions and, kind of that type of thing. Yet you would think that all you need to do to have a good society is just make the right choice on election day in November. And that's hogwash. That's, we need to make a good society together, and that's a whole lot of other little bitty choices. It's do you let the person in the lane that's trying to get over and is kind of stuck? Do you stop to help the person that's stranded on the side of the road? Do you encourage each other to be better, and that type of thing? So anyway, I think people could have what it takes to make a much better society than we have now. It's just they're kind of being stimulated in ways that aren't conducive to that. I guess that would be my biggest takeaway. Essentially, to sum it up, we have the potential to do amazing things as a collection of human beings, but we seem to kind of net out a lot of that potential in ways that isn't constructive.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tan.
Well, I mean, this is how do we get there? Like, what are these? Like, what can we do? Like, what's one actionable step that can move the needle forward, even if it's just a little bit?
Well, I think it's Confucius or something. I mean, you take care of the person to take care of the family, you take care of the family to take care of the society, you take care of the society to take care of the state, you take care of the state to take care of the world. Ultimately, it all begins with us individually. I mean, there's a gazillion ways I could be better than I am now. And I think that's kind of like where we have to start, is like, how do we become better individuals? And then how do we become better, create better relationships between each other? And then kind of build out there. I think a lot of the work that needs to be done to move the needle is probably work that nobody except you yourself will see. It's kind of the thing.
Mhm.
It's a hard concept to wrap around in every single mind, is realizing, that sometimes we're just simply, a vessel or a conduit towards a greater good, and you don't see the end of the pipeline. But that's like, because most people are just, I mean, myself certainly included, just so impatient, and maybe even just, I don't know, there may be an inherent selfishness in us to desire to see a result, or to not see a result, maybe inactivity or inaction. But I think perhaps maybe what you're saying might be like, if we can all sometimes be okay with not knowing the end, or just know that what we're doing, as long as we're doing the best we can, is going to contribute to an overall good result in society, and it's going to be helping contribute positively, regardless of our own knowledge or outcome. I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Yeah, I think one thing we all crave is like purpose, and it's very easy to, I mean, to have a purpose for yourself that uh, only you have, that only you see value in, is very, very difficult to have. Like, we are so influenced by the people around us, and the pressures of society, and our own kind of value judgments are kind of forced to align to some degree with the groups that we're in. It's better to be rich than poor. It's better to be, popular than unpopular. It's better to, to some degree, you kind of have to fit in with the people around you. So it's like, choose your friends, choose your future type of situation. If you have a bunch of people sitting around that are interested in space, you're going to go and research, space topics. Or, if you have a bunch of people that are interested in astronomy, talking about telescopes and, kind of understanding like dark skies and keeping them dark, are naturally valued by that group. And you don't have to like go defend every single viewpoint that you have if that group aligns with kind of like what you already think. And it's kind of interesting. People are like, what's the point of going to the moon? And it's funny, those same people probably would not question the point of paying millions of dollars to a handful of people to toss a ball around in a big stadium.
Yeah.
Because from an abstract standpoint, it's like, what good is that? Is that feeding anybody? Are you learning anything? But it's fun to watch these teams do that. And because you have people that just naturally value that, that in itself makes it valuable. And it's like, if you have people that enjoy staring into the heavens and trying to make sense of it, that in itself makes it valuable to do that, and to make it, create events in that. And it's just like, what the society enjoys, it ultimately does. And if it enjoyed exploring the universe, it would. And it doesn't matter if that increases our economic output or not. It would just be seen as something that would be valued in and of itself. And, kind of coming back to a million people on Mars, you and I could debate all day long about the merits of going to Mars or not. And we would have a hard time, I think, finding a reason that would make sense. But the moment you have a million people on Mars, that in itself becomes a reason to go there. It's like, it becomes, it's like Las Vegas. Who would go to the middle of the desert? But the fact that there's a city there, and, it's famous, and there's a whole bunch of entertainment things, means that, it makes sense to go to a place that has very little water or something like that.
Right.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah.
So Vegas on Mars, that's what you're saying, is we need we need great casinos in the first Mars base, right? We'll Bellagio Mars. You know?
Well, getting to Mars might be winning the ultimate craps table.
Good point.
Everybody who makes it to Mars is a winner.
Mhm. That is
Yeah.
very true. It is going to take an insane amount of luck.
I know.
Um,
It's like, I mean, the thing is, if everybody in Roanoke had a Twitter account or a YouTube channel, how many people would have followed?
mhm.
So it's going to be kind of scary. Hopefully, we do this with a lot less loss of life.
I really quick want to take a second to come up to the surface and just welcome those of you who are tuning in right now. Perhaps some of you have joined in late in the conversation. We're interviewing Nathan Price, aka Nate, aka GadgetNate on the internet, and here he is right here for you guys. He is the founder of Countdown to the Moon, which is a project where he interviews somebody every single day about documenting their experience with space exploration, and in particular relative to humanity's return to the moon, which is forecasted to be happening within the next couple of years. And Nate's been explaining and sharing his experiences about that and his experience so far. And it's been awesome to hear about it. And if you're interested in participating in one of Nate's interviews, they're quick and easy to do. You can just go to countdowntothemoon.org, which is right here on the screen. There's a link in the description of this YouTube video as well. You can go there and sign up for an interview with Nate. I did one back in 2022. It was super fun. And that's how I got to know Nate and why he's here tonight. So highly recommended for you guys to go participate in it. So thank you very much for tuning in. Yeah. I also want to, snap. Hold on.
Yo.
We want to do a little feature here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Thank you, Alexander, for sending us the $10
Bro.
super thanks or super chat, whatever they call it these days. Huge thank you for supporting us on the live stream. The financial contributions help immensely with us preparing for better equipment to make the show better, hosting through our service StreamYard pays for the subscription to help us keep the show alive, and potential other opportunities down the line. So thank you for supporting us. We never want to outwardly ask for that, but if you guys ever do feel like, hey, the best way I can support people is through financial contributions, you can do that through the little $sign in the chat there, just so you guys know that exists. But Alexander, thank you for your support tonight. You're awesome.
Look at me peeking over the $10. Oh.
Oh yeah, did you get covered up a little bit if I do that? Yeah.
Yeah, just like.
Oh, that's perfect. Also just want to give everybody a little bit of reminder about the show. This is the Galactic Windows Space Podcast. We do live streams every Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time in the US, right here on YouTube. And you can find us by going to my channel, The Orbital Alliance, here on the internet. I'm on all the other platforms as well. You can find me here, but we exclusively stream the podcast to YouTube. Tan, below me, you can find him chasing the milk on social media as well. Maybe you guys are here from his live stream, his broadcasting of the live stream to TikTok. So thank you guys who jumped in, and be sure to support Tan. And also just want to do a little bit of a plug for Nate here. You can find him at GadgetNate all over social media if you want to support him online as well. So back to it.
Man, I'm curious. Does this count as one of the interviews or no?
No, it doesn't. But I interviewed
I
interviewed one of my fellow pickleball players today, so that worked out well.
All right. We'll have to.
Yeah,
we'll have
and
to sign
interestingly, the interviews in terms of length, I think the shortest one was like 30 seconds, but the longest one was like 3.5 hours.
What? No way.
Let's talk about the 30-second interview. Like, what was that like?
I mean, okay, so it's this would it's did you know NASA's going back to the moon? What do you think about it? In 200 years, do you think we're living on Mars and other planets? And what do you think of trip to space? So it's like boom, 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 boom. And that usually somebody that's like in a hurry has really quick answers. You know, did you know we're going back to the moon? No. After hearing about it, what do you think about it? It's cool, I guess. You know, and so I mean, not like the most interesting interview for sure, but it counted for that day. You know, and it is hard to have really in-depth, constructive interviews every single day. Some days are a lot better than others. Some days you find somebody and you really connect with them, and next thing you know, an hour's passed, and it's yeah. But then other days, you know, you find somebody and it's just like it's hard to get anything out of them. Like you haven't found the shovel to you know, get in and figure out you know, what they're interested in. But it's been a lot of fun. I think what I'm going to do after the project's over with, after the interviewing part of the project's over with, is probably let it sit for a few years and then go back and listen through them after I've had some distance. And you know, you mentioned about the Artemis project, and I know it's Countdown to the Moon, and it's kind of all around Artemis and that type of thing. But I actually see that as kind of like just a framework in a bigger context. Like if we were looking at aviation right now, you know, you had what, 1906, the Wright brothers did their first flight. Is that right? 1904?
1903?
1903. Okay, 1903 they did their first flight. And then at what point did we have the first like airport? You know, I mean, like where you could like go to an airport, get a plane and fly someplace else. I mean, is that like 1930, 1940, somewhere around there, right?
Right. So give or take. Yeah, I think so.
And now we're up to what, 1 billion airline passengers a year or some crazy number like that. You know, I mean, and to think like before 1903, there were zero airline passengers. In fact, yeah.
That we know of.
That we know of. Yeah. Well, they weren't frequent flyers. They may have been single event flyers.
You good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rest in pieces.
Yes, rest in pieces. That's true. But you know, the thing is, before the Wright brothers did their flight, you know, you go and talk to the most people about flying, and they would probably tell you something like it's impossible or stuff. And even after the Wright brothers' flight, you know, like, okay, so a guy that's specially trained on a plane can fly for like 25 seconds and go across a creek or something. I don't know. But, you know, now though, you go to talk to people about flying, and I think the reality of today's experience is so in their face that they really can't imagine a future other than the present that they live in, right? And I feel like space flight is somewhere after the Wright brothers did their flight, but still before we sort of have kind of like the entrenched system that's everybody's using that's effective enough and stuff like that. So I think you get some really interesting responses from people right now. So I was kind of hoping to catch that. It's kind of interesting though. I started the interview before COVID was even a word. You know, and so I kind of want to go back and when was the first time that actually got mentioned? Like, what was the date that COVID got mentioned, and when did it stop? And we also had like, what is it, Ocean Gate, the whole sub thing that came up. You know, that was like for a week. You know, you talk to people about space, and they're thinking about exploring underneath the ocean, and that kind of. Anyway, yeah.
That's insane. That you kind of you've gotten to sort of chronicle world events throughout your time doing this, and you can kind of plot history throughout it and see the patterns. And it's been enough time that stuff like that comes and goes. And that's got to be really interesting to see it when you zoom out. So like as you revisit this in a couple of years, I really want to hear your perspective. And what things you notice, what patterns that maybe you didn't see as you're interviewing, but that retroactively or retrospectively you could look at and notice from the future.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
go
know,
ahead.
I've interviewed somebody on every continent except Antarctica. So if anybody knows somebody out there in Antarctica that you could connect me with, that would be helpful. I would love to check that box.
You have to get past the ice wall first.
Dude, I think that's totally possible because there are, if you get bold with it, there's a guy named Matty Jordan he's on TikTok, but he's on other social media as well. He's from New Zealand, and he's spent professional tours in Antarctica at I think it's McMurdo Station. Is that where it is? Or Scott Base? I can't remember which one it is. But there's a couple, I think it's McMurdo Station. But there's a couple of those bases down there where people are basically on rotations all year round for the most part. And I think they're they're in summer now, or they're going into summer almost. So, I guess they're in spring going into summer come this December. So the next shift of people are going down there soon. So maybe find Matty Jordan and start looking at people he follows, or reach out to him and see if he can connect you with somebody. Because I don't know him personally, but like if you're looking for a name, there's a name for somebody who at least is connected to people who are actively in Antarctica. I don't know if that helps, but it's totally possible.
No, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's like a couple thousand people down there at any given time across all the different bases. There's a Concordia Station is the French one as well. So there's like all these different places. Somebody exists that can get you that final checkbox, you know?
I don't know if you mentioned this, Nate, but have all the interviews been physical? Like, would you be opposed to doing a virtual one?
Pre-COVID, they were all going to be physical in person. And then COVID really made me had to reconsider.
Okay.
So Zoom works perfectly well. I mean, I have even gone so far as to some people don't have Zoom or don't like Zoom, and their patients are kind of small, and I really need my interview. So I even done it like FaceTime with another camera, like filming me, like
Nice.
doing the FaceTime thing. So at the March interviews from 2020, they are really goofy because I was trying to still, like, they weren't in person, but I was like psychologically thinking, well, if I'm using my phone to do the interview, then that's kind of like, anyway, had a goofy period. Also, somebody suggested Omegle as a place to do interviews. I don't know if you're familiar with Omegle.
Yeah.
It's like they randomly hook you up with like a video person and do a video chat.
Omegle.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
and it was that was not a good experience.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah. Yep.
That was not good. I did 2 interviews that way, but it was very sketchy.
I'm surprised you made it that far.
Yeah.
Man.
I was pretty desperate at the time, and this is like the COVID and trying to find people. Oh, I think I still have shivers, and I still need to go through therapy for the Omegle experience.
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, does it? I think Omegle got shut down.
Oh, did it?
Or like
okay.
got sold
Well, I'm
or
not
bought or
sad.
something. Yeah, you and the rest of us. I think.
I mean, I love the concept, right? I mean, the idea is let's hook you up with a random person and you'll have a conversation. That's not what happens.
Nope. Right. It's humans tend to get in the way of cool things a lot of the time.
That's one of the things I really loved about like the 1980s and 1990s was our communication is so text-based, right? I mean, like there was used to be a joke, you could be on the internet and you could be a dog and nobody would know about it or something like that. I mean, because everything was like text-based, it was like the words and the thoughts. I mean, it's kind of really neat. I mean, you would go to, you would read like sites with like content, and there wouldn't be all this graphics and all these people paying to try to distract you from the very thing you're trying to stay focused on. It's like the early internet. And it was good too. Like before it became so popular, it was like, you had to have a certain level of skill to get on it and patience. it's almost like an exclusive club in a
Right.
way. So
The
it's kind of
dial-up
a
club.
different dial-up club. Yeah, but I mean, you know, you used to go to bookstores and get like directories of websites.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you like open up the book. You know, you want to read about motorcycles. Well, these are the places where you could do that, and you want to read about telescopes, and you want to read about sailboats. You know, it's like quite a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've come a long way, baby. Now we have Omegle.
I know. It's like we have moved quite a bit of distance, but it's not necessarily in the direction that we want it.
Right. One of the things that when you were sharing about some of your experiences, particularly that 30-second interview, because you kind of gave an example of this, like, you probably have had a lot of people, maybe I'll lend some perspective here, but I would assume the overwhelming response to, like, did you know we're returning to the moon, is probably overwhelmingly no. Is that accurate?
100%. I would say of the people I've interviewed, I haven't kept perfect stats, and stats on a project like this, I'm not sure how meaningful they would be, considering you know, people are kind of self-selecting, you know, to participate, so they're more likely to be comfortable and know about it than people not. But I would say that 80% of the people that I've talked to have no clue that we're going to the moon. And a large number of those people that I interviewed were around the Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas.
Which is mind-boggling.
Wow.
So it seems to me, if you had a chance of getting people to know that we're going to the moon, that would be the one place I would think you would have a disproportionately higher percentage of people knowing that we're going to the moon. And, you know, I think this is pointing to like a larger problem. I mean, the fact that people don't know we're going to the moon or not maybe isn't all that important. But I think the reason why so many people don't know we're going to the moon or not is the way we get news, like the way we stay informed. Used to, we all read pretty much the same newspapers, the same magazines, saw the same nightly news. And if you made it into those forums, pretty much a large percentage of people would know about it. But I think the vast majority of people get such personalized content that they're sort of stuck in these topic islands
These like loops.
that are these loops, like really focused. Like you and I, we probably see all the space stuff, you know, it's like Everyday Astronaut and, you know, What About It and Scott Manley and, you know, Greg Berger and all these pieces. And we know everything to the nth detail. And then we come across somebody that has no clue that there is even a SLS or Orion or Artemis. And we're like, really? How could you not know that? And then they have like their own topics that we're completely clueless about. You know, it's just like we are each living in our own worlds. Like there's like we are missing the foundational materials to actually have dialogue. Like it's like we can't even. By the time they brought me up to speed about their topic of interest, you know, we would be out of time. You know, we couldn't have a discussion. It would consume all of their energy and bandwidth just to get me up to speed about their, and likewise about mine. So we don't talk.
Right.
You know,
Algorithmic based, I guess. You know, computers deciding like what we would like to hear, I guess.
Yeah, you know that scene in The Matrix, like the original one, where Neo is meeting the Oracle, and the Oracle says it's all right, and he's like, "What?" And he like, you know, bumps his elbow, and you know, the vase breaks, and she's like, "For that," and she's like, "What's going to really cook your goose is would you have done it if I didn't say anything?" You know. And you know, it's also that kind of interesting thing about these topics on the internet. You know, you get exposed to something, and then you start getting exposed to that thing more and more and more. And now suddenly that's your world. Would it have even been on your radar at all if it went for like that like repetitive kind of exposure.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like there's a tendency amongst people to learn something at one point in their life and just cling to it, and almost have an unwillingness to adapt or update their codex in their brain to developments. Like, I feel like most people's perception of space and space exploration generally ends when they're in their youth. Like, they grew up learning about the moon landings in school. Maybe they watched a rocket launch on TV or something like that, and then that's it. They kind of forget about it, and space becomes something that just was. Like, for instance, like your whole project, it makes me think about a couple of years ago, I wanted to do a video where I would ask people on the street similar questions. I never did it because I was too chicken. but one of the things that spurred that idea in me was the number of times I talked with real life people I knew, people that I worked with, who, and this is like within the past few years, people who still believe we're flying space shuttles, even though the space shuttle has been retired since 2011. And it ran for 30 years, and that was like the end of 's life, and it's done. But like, it was like 2018, 2019, 2020, and so on. And people were like, oh yeah, they're probably sending just space shuttle up to do it. I'm like, they're not doing that. And they haven't been doing that for a while. But it's just like, there was that concept that if you grew up across those 30 years when the space shuttle was flying, it's kind of what you just assume is indefinitely happening, until somebody comes and has a countdown of the moon level project and tells you otherwise, right? Like, or if it's not in your actual, those loops that we were talking about, right? Like that if it's not in your sphere, you're just never going to update your codex in your brain. And that always boggled my mind. So I was curious, about like how that played into the interviews, like just that people are probably so far off the radar for what's actually happening, and that what literal billions of government dollars are being spent on to make happen, or private industry is helping develop, which is huge news for people like you and I, like you were saying, who do follow Tim Dodd and Eric Berger and all that, like who see it all the time. But otherwise, they're just completely dismissive of it and probably wouldn't care otherwise. And one other funny story that I may have shared this in a previous episode for those of you who've been watching, but on a similar note, just to prove the point, a couple of weeks ago over the summer when we had the Boeing Starliner situation where, Butch and Sonny on the space station, the news was kind of capitalizing as the astronauts being stuck on the space station or trapped on the space station, and this wasn't true. There was just delays on their return. I talked with somebody who I knew personally who misread the news so deeply that she actually was convinced that astronauts were stuck on the moon.
Nice.
Which was she was dead serious, and I was like, oh, you mean the space station, right? And maybe. I'm like, no, people have not been on the moon since 1972. It's okay. But it was like, most people just, it's so far out of their realm of loop and news and update that they just almost don't care. So I bet it's been really interesting to see the varying levels of care that go into it and interest across 1,700 interviews.
Yeah, no, indeed. And, you kind of, whenever you talked about the shuttle, I think, it might be worth probing a little bit about what they mean by the shuttle. Mm-hmm. Because, like the Eskimos, I think they have like 50 words for snow, because it's like snowing all the time. It's like the fluffy snow, the hard snow, the snow. I mean, things that you and I don't have. And, you and I have a lot more granular terminology when it comes to spacecraft and space flight. Mm-hmm. But for them, shuttle might actually be kind of like a more generic term of something that carries people to space and back, as opposed to like the space shuttle type of thing. So sure. They just may not have any vocabulary to kind of express something different. And so they use the one term that they have that kind of is their catch-all for that thing. So, but I did, talking about kind of things, I've had a couple of experiences that are a reminder. You remember Mike Pence when he was talking about us going back to the moon? He's like, land the first woman and the next man on the moon. And I was interviewing this high school girl about us, going back to the moon. And I think I repeated those lines. And you could kind of like see the face. And, she was like, is it a dating show? It's like, because, and I like never thought about it from that perspective. But if you just, like, we're going to send a guy and girl to the moon, it's like, what? Will they play house? It's just like some type of reality show, It's like, it's kind of funny. Yeah. So you got to be really careful how you talk about things because, it's very easy. I mean, people will interpret it from their context, which may be very different than yours. And so they hear the words, you think you're communicating, and you've transmitted and created a completely different thought than what you intended. I've also had some interesting surprises. I remember right before the COVID lockdowns, I came across this mother and daughter who I interviewed. And it was a really kind of short interview, but the last question is, would you take a trip to the moon? Or no, would you take a trip to space? I always ask that. Would you take a trip to space? And the mother was like, yes. And the daughter was like, no. And the mom was like surprised. It's like, you do everything. Why wouldn't you like take a trip? And it's like this moment of insight that she had into her daughter that, she had never had cause to like discuss. And it's just kind of really funny, really interesting to capture that moment, actually. So.
That's crazy because that spurred the question in my head is if you thought about if you had younger people in your interviews, ever wondered how perhaps your interview might spur the beginnings of a great career in space exploration, perhaps the first Mars generation, because somebody may have asked them, would you ever go to space? And they go, well, maybe I would. And then they say yes, which gets them interested in school and so on. And then maybe they do. Like, have you thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what Doug Laverio did in terms of spawning my project. My project might be spawning all these other bits of activity that I have no visibility into right now. I mean, I might be watching the first person land on the moon, the Mars, right? And they're like, yeah, I didn't think anything about space. And this crazy guy came up to me and said, did you know that people are going to the moon? And, I kind of stuck back and, yeah, I mean, just like what you said, I mean, who knows? That may be it. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think. So I think things like, SpaceX capturing the booster might have a bigger impact, but we all impact each other to some degree. So
I'm gonna shift gears just a tiny bit, because you're getting close to the finish line. So I guess I have a couple questions. We'll start with this one. What's gonna happen? Like what's next? Once you get to the end, then what?
Yeah, so several thoughts. The one that will probably happen and that it's kind of like my default thing is I just set the interviews aside. Maybe at some point I make it easier to like research them, kind of look for keywords and, points, people who are for and against and that type of thing. And then maybe I come back and I rewatch them and create some type of like summary. The other thought is maybe I pass the baton to somebody else. And instead of me going out there and interviewing people, maybe make it more of a community project where other people are going out there interviewing other people at that point. And, and maybe it becomes more of a collection of interviews done by a whole host of people in their various communities around this topic to kind of more systematically and create even a broader kind of database of views and perceptions. So those are sort of the two thoughts I had right now.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a really gnarly project, And just from a like creator standpoint, I'd imagine getting to the finish line. Maybe you could say that it's bittersweet. You know, you're doing so much every single day, and then like when you come to the end, it's I was just really kind of curious. You know, like what's next? You know, like maybe that sparks a whole different um, countdown. You know, project or something. So interesting. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I think it's going to free up a lot of time because it's not just the interviews themselves, it's going and asking people. I mean, like today, for example, I went to Starbucks. I saw this guy sitting there. I was like, hey, would you do a countdown to the moon interview? You know, I like telling about my project. You know, I am interviewing a person a day to the end of this year to find out what people think about NASA going to the moon, the future of humanity, and if you would take a trip to space. Could I interview you? It takes about a minute. He's like, oh, well, I'm doing DoorDash and I can't do it right now. You know, and I was like, okay, that's cool. And so I sat there, drank my coffee, ate my sandwich, and he was literally like sitting there for 10 minutes. I'm like thinking, wow, we really had the time to get it done. Right? And, you know, then you see a few other people, you know, there's like a couple of people talking. I was like, I don't want to interview them. And then there's like a person actively working on his computer and like a girl listening to her music and somebody that came in. So I was like, ah. Anyway, then I went to the park and I saw somebody fishing and I was like, hey, I told him about my project. He's like, yeah, sure, I do it. And he's like, oh, well, I have to be on video. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. And he's like, no, I don't want to be video. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I went to another guy and pretty much he didn't want to be videoed. And then I went to another guy. He's like, oh, my English is not so good. I was like, well, I could tell you the questions ahead of time. You know, it's like, no, I'm not interested. So, you know, I mean, all of that took like time to go through. And then luckily I had to play pickleball this evening, and there was like a person in my group that I hadn't interviewed yet, only one. So, and luckily she was willing. Otherwise, Tan, it might have been your turn. Anyway.
That's
Tomorrow.
interesting. I just didn't think about how many other factors affected that. You know, for some reason, I was just thinking you just walked up to someone and it was a slam dunk for every person that you asked. But you're right. Some people, you know, whether they're busy or they just simply don't want to do it, definitely makes it a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, there's some days I might ask a dozen or two people. Luckily, those days are rare, you know, because usually you can find situations where people are more likely to say yes. And you know, you can kind of be more selective. So.
Well, I think it goes without saying that so far, I mean, you're almost there, and but we're gonna count it as you being successful because we know you're gonna be successful. You've you're gonna see it through to the finish line. But I want to like just collectively invite our audience who is watching live right now and everyone who is watching in the replays to just to give you just a huge round of applause for such an undertaking to be a documentarian and a historian and someone who's just interested in the human perspective. You know, I'm so impressed that there are people like you out there. And it fires me up to want to try to do something similar or to maybe address the questions like I've had in the past and actually pursue them, or to have the courage to engage with real human beings a little bit more on a deeper level. Yeah, well done. And I can't wait to celebrate with you as you sprint across the finish line, man. It's going to be great.
Yeah, you know, early in the COVID scare, you didn't, you know, we didn't know how deadly COVID was, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, now it feels kind of funny, but at the time, I think there's a lot of real concerns about would we live?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I told my younger son, he was in college at the time, I was like, hey, if anything happens to me, you got to finish this project. You've not seen somebody so concerned for their father's life.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So,
That's funny.
but yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I see my wife actually gave me a whole bunch of high fives or claps. So that's kind of cool. And you know, I was saving my wife towards the end, right? I wanted to do like a special interview with her, and we were in a Uber in New York City. It's like 11:30 at night. And I was like, I'll ask the Uber driver, right? And he said no. And like the time to our destination is after midnight. I'm like, oh, it's not gonna work. So I ended up interviewing her in the taxi. It wasn't the best setup. We're gonna have to do a follow up at some point. But yeah.
Yeah. One last thing we wanted to make sure we covered here with you, Nate, before we end the episode was something that I find particularly interesting, and I'm sure many people listening in wanna know about too. Is that you work in Mission Control Center at Johnson Space Center, correct? Supporting the International Space Station. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm working flight operations. So the people that you see inside of mission control, staring at the screens intently, kind of controlling, like the classic thing. So that's my current job right now. I don't actually work in the flight control room that you see on TV. I work in a back room supporting those people right now.
Gotcha.
But I'm currently going through the training to work in that room. And I work in the group that's responsible for the electrical power systems, the mechanical systems, and the thermal control systems on all of the human spacecraft. So this is the International Space Station, this is Boeing Starliner, this is Human Landing System, this is Gateway, this is Orion. Is that everything? I think that's everything. Okay. And I work specifically on the International Space Station program. And essentially what that means is we're responsible for the solar arrays, the thermal radiators, the electrical power system, generating the power, storing the power, distributing the power, and also the external thermal control system. I mean, essentially the International Space Station is in a vacuum, and the only way you're going to get rid of heat is through radiation. And so we have like these radiators, and we have ammonia that we circulate through,
These guys right here.
heat exchangers and other stuff. Oh, great. Yes.
There, we got a model.
Yeah.
There's the radiator panels here. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I have to bring up the demo. So please continue.
No, I love it. I love it. Have you heard of ISS Mimic?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, it's a 3D printed ISS model with servos and a Raspberry Pi, and there is a telemetry feed of the real ISS that it can read, and it will move its solar arrays and its radiators in line with the real ISS as it happens.
That's so sick.
And so, like, whenever we have like a visiting spacecraft, when we have a visiting spacecraft come or leave, that spacecraft is controlling itself by sending out little plumes of gas, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And those plumes of gas don't just stop at the edge of the spacecraft; they continue on. And so, if your solar arrays are, getting hit by that, that's not good. So we have to configure our solar arrays for events like that. And other things, like sometimes we take pictures of our solar arrays, so we need to move them in certain directions and stuff. But so whenever we're sending those commands, not only are we controlling the real International Space Station, but we're also controlling dozens of ISS Mimic models all around the world.
That's so cool.
And
I'll start printing them out.
I was telling this to my coworkers, and they actually said that made them, more focused, concerned, scared of all these little ISS models that they're controlling. But I totally love my job at NASA. It is amazing. I have the most supportive coworkers. I mean, I've had amazing coworkers all throughout my career. So by praising my current coworkers, I don't want to do anything to undermine kind of like the previous coworkers I had. But NASA is an amazingly supportive place. And flight operations is amazing. Everybody is really trying to get each other to become the best version of themselves that they can. And it's very cooperative. It's very constructive. It's very supportive. And I just really love it. But I think there was a version of my career where I would stay in like the technology. Was working at a company called Anaplan. It was a great place, had a wonderful boss. Um, and I could have been there for a long, long, long time, until I retired, and that would have been the end of it. But I was interested in space. I went to, the International Astronautical Congress. I started the North Houston Space Society. I started Countdown to the Moon project. I was volunteering at Space Center Houston, as a greeter type thing. That's kind of cool. And I could have, just done that. But and I was thinking about going to see the Inspiration 4 launch, and I was on the fence. I like bought tickets because I had some friends encourage me, and then I canceled the tickets because I was like, oh, I got work and stuff. The day before the launch, I had found out that one of my coworkers had died, and he seemed like a healthy person. He was on the previous week's team meeting, and I don't know, that just triggered something for me, because it occurred to me that life is finite. If you are not on the path of doing what you are meant to do, you may never do it. The end may come before you begin. Anyway, I was like, forget it. I'm going to see Inspiration 4. I got, the tickets. I flew down there. I hooked up with some other people from Houston that I knew. We got a boat, and we got to go up to the launch pad. So that's kind of cool. And then I saw the flight, and it was just after, the flight was just after sunset. Did y'all see Inspiration 4 in person?
Not in person, but I watched the live stream.
Okay, well, in person is amazing because it was just after sunset, and the it taking off from the pad, you can see the plumes and the fire and everything, and then it got high enough where it was in the sunlight, and you can really make out all the little gas plumes and everything. It was just so beautiful. It's the only. It was the only
jellyfish.
Yeah, the jellyfish. Yeah, exactly. It was the only launch I've seen in person, ever. I went to Florida December of 1985, and I saw Challenger on the launch pad.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, of course, in January 1986 is when it took its last flight. But this is the only flight I've actually seen, and it's amazing. Sadly, I drove from Houston to Florida to see Bob and Doug take off on the first flight, and it got scrubbed because of weather, and it looked like the next launch attempt the next day was even less likely to work because of weather. And I think my son had some AP exams or something. So we drove back. And then the next day we're watching it on the couch or in bed on the iPhone.
Yeah.
So that's kind of unfortunate, but
yeah,
almost on.
That was the first crewed flight test of the Crew Dragon, correct?
Yes, exactly.
And it launched on the day with lower odds. That's correct? That's what you were saying?
I launched on the day with lower odds.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Of course, right?
Yeah, and that's interesting. And that was the first flight. Inspiration 4 is after that, right?
Yeah, it was 2021. So yeah, that was the next year, I think.
Okay,
within,
it was
6 months or something like that. 6-8 months later.
Yeah, it's amazing. And now we got Polaris Dawn. And just whoa. And then, we got Europa Clipper and thousands of Starlink satellites. Anyway, I really hope we get that city on Mars.
yeah, right. One of the things I wanted to ask you, a couple of years ago, I went on a really big journey myself to try to end up employed in the space industry, in the spaceflight industry. I applied for so many jobs. Many of them were in mission control in similar positions that you're in. I applied for ground control jobs, flight control jobs, trying to get in there specifically because I love the International Space Station so much that I was trying to get there. And one of the things I had to learn was that a lot of those jobs, they're not actually like, oh, I'm going to apply on NASA's website. There are a lot of those roles exist through contractors. And I had to find out what those companies even were. I'd never heard of them in my life. I had to apply to them in hopes of working for NASA. Is that the experience you had? Are you contracted by NASA through a company, or did you actually find a position that is like is it civil servant? Is that the correct term for that? Like, how was your experience with that?
Yeah, so KBR has the IMOC contract, which is like the Mission Operations Control. I forget, Internet ISS Mission Operations Control or something. But they have the contract to provide all the people for flight operations. So I'm actually a KBR employee and a contractor of NASA. And so you do have to apply there, but I have heard a lot of people who applied for years trying to get in, or lots of frustrating experience. And my experience was the exact opposite of that. It was very magical. And I think a lot of it, I've heard people say that, they want to hire people who know what the job is and still wants to do it. So that's kind of the thing. I think, going from my software development job, at Anaplan to this job, I make about a third of what I did at the software company. So this is definitely like a passion job for me. And I had the luck of they generally hire like a training class. They put them through nearly a year's worth of like classroom study. And then about 6 months worth of like simulations where they're like doing the job, but it's on a computer and they're with a team and they're being graded and that type of thing. Anyway, they had just lost an entire training class of people who went to go work for like Axiom for, slightly more money.
Yep.
So I kind of already had that as my benefit. Like, I'm not going to change jobs for $5,000 because I'm giving up way more than that just to come here. So that's like, and so I'm not at risk of leaving because of that. So I think that was a big benefit. Another thing was timing. They were just trying to put together a training class. So when I emailed the hiring manager, he was looking for people. And that makes a world of difference, right? I mean, if you're not looking for somebody and you're like, hey, hire me, they're like, that's not really going to help. And the other thing was the hiring manager was kind of like me. Like, mission control is an entry-level job, right? This is a job you get directly out of college, right? So the majority of my peers are in their 20s, and I'm about to turn 50. So, there's a big age gap between us. But the hiring manager also had a previous career and had come to NASA as like a second or third career as well. So, I think that also I was really lucky in that case because like he could understand like why I would want to do that and like the reasons, and it kind of resonated with them. So I sent my resume and my cover letter to the hiring manager, and I got a call back in an hour.
What? No way.
Yes. Yeah, way.
Holy smokes.
Holy smokes. And then that was on a Monday. And then on that Thursday, I had like the big interview with like everybody. And sadly, though, I didn't do any interview prep because there was like one question I should have been prepared for that I wasn't. And that was, what are your two biggest weaknesses? And I always think, despite the Countdown to the Moon project, consistency and discipline are, I figure, like the two areas I really need to work on. It's like, becoming a more disciplined type person. And so I said that as my two biggest weaknesses, which, wouldn't be catastrophic if it wasn't like one of the 7 foundations of flight operations.
Yeah.
It's like,
You just kneecapped yourself there.
I kneecap myself. I'm like, these are the 7 things we value, and you just said that one of them is your biggest weakness. Luckily, luckily my manager and my previous managers who I had as references can kind of put that in a better context, which kind of worked out. But that was not a interview prep is good.
Right. The best of your ability, be prepared, right?
Yes. Have somebody ask you these standard questions. It's like,
just made
anyway.
something up. You did better than
me. I asked some of my coworkers that got hired. I'm like, hey, what'd you say? He's like, oh, I get easily bored or something like that, or I work too hard. That's like the job is too much. Like these like like strengths you kind of wrap up as negative, but to show that you're really even stronger. Anyway.
Right. You should have just if they should have gone. What are your greatest weaknesses? And you should be like, well, not being as cool as you guys up here, and like it started schmoozing them, using a chance to.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember a lot of the questions being, how do you handle feedback? Because in flight operations, you are getting and giving feedback all the time. Mm-hmm. There are, they're constantly being critiqued on kind of things that can be kind of easily become frustrating, but you find some way to move forward with it. It's kind of interesting, but that's something I really like. It's just sad to think that in like 2031, the station will be deorbited, and aside from like the engineering and technology, I mean, do you realize that we have been in contact with Russia every single day and have figured out some way to make that work, regardless of what's been going on down here? I mean, we have Russians in Houston supporting Moscow. We have We have Americans in Moscow supporting Houston. Mm-hmm. It's been amazing. It's like, I mean, I just that level of international cooperation. I mean, I wish we had like a United Nations space station. That would be kind of cool. Anyway, I also think it'd be kind of cool if the United Nations actually met in space. How cool would it be for these these leaders of nations to be floating above the Earth, and no boundaries, and they're like constantly having that in their face. Mm-hmm. Instantly talking about having stuff in your face and not in your face. I think it's sad that most public events are done inside of the Columbus module. Like there's like no views of the Earth. Right. I mean, you're basically floating in a container.
Yes.
Whereas if you had like the Earth in the background, you'd be like, yes, we're in space above the thing. But it's kind of crammed in Node 3 where the cupola is.
I was gonna say you can't jam 2 or 3 people in the cupola. They all just be huddled up, real cozy, like.
I mean, but you got like the toilet there. You have like the the treadmill and the weightlifting machine and the robotics workstation. I mean, it's like.
Yeah, right. It is interesting, but yeah, it'd be tight. I know they've done some broadcasts or events in the Japanese laboratory, which is at least large and spacious, and has those 2 windows in the back. So that's like a nice middle ground. But yeah, doing it in the European module is definitely less interesting.
And Axiom, I think, is planning like a much bigger cupola for their station. So I'm really excited what they might be able to do in there.
Dude,
terms of events. And one thing is, I remember, there's a lot of things that NASA I love is like after we have like a crew come back, they give a talk to us, and it's always a delight to listen to them. kind of give that unfiltered experience. And one of the things that one of them mentioned in passing was it wasn't until undocking that they actually got to see the stars and everything, because there are no outward facing windows, which seems like that would be a good thing to address in the future space station.
I've never thought about that. I mean, I guess it makes sense that, of course, we'd want to see views of the Earth as much as possible, and there are several points in the station for that. But like, why wouldn't we have at least put some view? I suppose if you're in one of the docked craft, maybe you have a chance depending on which way it's oriented. But yeah, we should totally do that in future space stations.
I mean, Skylab had a telescope, and they did solar astronomy. So it seems like that would be cool.
And now it's and there were pieces that hit Australia on its deorbit. I wonder if that was
true.
a telescope that hit. Was it a bar? Wasn't there like a bar in Australia that got hit by Skylab debris, or something like that? And they like have it featured in the eating area. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But I wonder if that's the telescope.
I was reading about that a little bit, and originally the plan was to have Skylab, and tumbling, and it would have much bigger like cross-sectional area and would have slowed down quicker. And somebody was like, "Hey, it'd be good if we kept like the telemetry going, so that we could get like the readings of what's happening." But he didn't realize that the software would automatically cause it to, level out, and fly straight. When it lost like comm with the ground or something like that. I forget what it was. And so basically it's because it was no longer tumbling because they turned that on. Is why it didn't land in the Indian Ocean where it was supposed to, and kind of hit Australia. So
yeah,
so that's kind of interesting. It's like just like a little small minor thing and not realizing the full implications of that.
Yeah, right. It's a dangerous game. I think luckily we've learned how to hone in our accuracy with deorbiting stuff as time has gone on, and certainly, hopefully, we figure out Point Nemo and how to get the ISS there properly in 2031.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to hear of all the things that you get to do and opportunities to support these crafts, these real vehicles that are currently housing humans that visit to and from space. And I'm sure you've had the chance to meet some really cool people, and your story is certainly not over when it comes to supporting human spaceflight. So I hope at some point in the future we can have you back here on the show and we can hear about some more of your space adventures.
Yeah, maybe after I actually end up in that front room of Mission Control and you can see me on NASA TV. They're like, you got to include that in the B-roll for the beginning. They're like,
yes.
This guy is talking to us today.
Big arrow, yeah. This is him.
This is him.
I know this guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Tan, do you have any thoughts here before we wrap things up?
I just want to say I am so grateful for your time. Seriously, I haven't heard of Countdown to the Moon until Nick here, and as soon as he told me this project, and I realized the scale of it and just how much goes into it, it's really difficult to not get excited. So, you're close to the finish line, Nate. I'm wishing you the best. I hope you find that interview in Antarctica, yeah, man. Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, it's been a pleasure to hang out with y'all. Glad y'all do this, and it's neat to see all your guests in the comments and everything. So,
do you have any? Do you want to plug Countdown to the Moon one time in your own words and to help you get to the finish line?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to countdowntothemoon and .org and hit interview me, there's a link to a Calendly site where you can sign up for a day and time. My work schedule has been very fluid lately. Like I'm like assigned to the SpaceX 31 cargo mission that's going up, and so it's like so that drives things, and training events drive things and stuff. But yeah, if you sign up there, we could pick a time, and that time for some reason doesn't work for at some point we could negotiate a new time. But yeah, that would be really awesome if we could get the next 70 days filled, especially in the morning. I love doing a countdown to the moon interview interview at 6 o'clock in the morning, because then you get the rest of the day off. Like I can't interview anybody for the rest of the day, right? It's like because it's strictly one a day, and then like 11:30 p.m. at night, it's like the most stressful. They're like, I got 29 minutes, 28 minutes, 27.
Yeah.
I'm calling Tan. I'm like, Tan, can we do it now?
Right.
So like right now.
Dude, well, you've heard from the man. Chat, go support Nate, sign up for an interview, and specifically register for it in the morning. It'd be the best possible scenario.
6 a.m. Yeah, get it.
Knock it out. Yeah.
Exactly. The rest of the day go beautiful for both of us.
The link for that is also in the description of this video. So if you guys don't want to type it in, you can just click it. Nice and easy for you guys. And also make sure you go and support Nate on social media. If you give him a follow, I met him on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find him there at GadgetNate, as well as other social media platforms. And be sure to go watch his other interviews too. You can go watch the backlog and the archive of everybody he's met over the past 1,700 plus days. So support this man. He's doing cool things for sure. But Nate, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. We're gonna off-ramp you here, and just want to say it's been a pleasure getting to know you a little bit better, and I certainly hope it's not the last time we get to talk, and best of luck on all of your spacey endeavors.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right, we'll see you next time. Sweet, dude. Well, here we are.
Countdown to the moon.
Countdown to the moon. It's happening. It is happening.
Dude, just I don't know. I keep on going back to the correlation of us we're on episode 21 of our podcast, 21 guests, right? Or 21 episodes. And then just thinking about 1,700.
Yeah.
Eventually, hopefully we'll get there, and we can look back on this, on this day, on our 21st episode, and talk about how minute that seems. But man, what a crazy thing to do. An insanely awesome thing.
So what I'm learning from this, Tan, is that we should do a podcast every day with a guest every day, right?
Yes.
If Nate can do it, we can do it.
Man.
We're gonna like live vicariously off of his momentum, and we're gonna carry it into our show. We're gonna do it. We can. We got the attitude.
It's extremely challenging, and what I think is really interesting is he was talking about his two weaknesses, discipline and consistency.
Yes,
I'd say he's doing a pretty dang good job making it this far. Because it is extremely tough. I know. We know how tough it is. Mm-hmm. But man, that's pretty incredible.
It is. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel. This is how I always feel when we have guests. Is I always feel like so fired up to do things, and then I look at the clock and realize it's 11 p.m. and I'm like, oh well, I should go to bed first. But I'm like super juiced. Starting tomorrow to go pursue all of my creative endeavors and dreams. But I'm so glad we got to talk to Nate. It was super cool.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, Tan.
Oh.
Wait, what? Oh, wait. Oh, what? Oh my gosh.
We got dinner.
Yes. Taco Bell. We're on our way. That's why we got to wrap at 11 is because I'm headed to T-Bell. Tiffy, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Seriously. You just keep on swinging for us, and I can't thank you enough. Seriously, you're the best. Oh my gosh.
Big shout out just everyone watching too, whether you're watching now live or if you maybe come across this episode while you're driving to work or on some road trip. Seriously, thank you so much. We're we are inspired to try to make it to 1,700 episodes, interviews, and was it what Blue Eyes said? 1,700 weeks from now is Monday, May 21st of 2057. Nick, I hope we're gonna timestamp this and just look back on it.
I'm in, dude. You in?
Yeah, so down. So
Yeah.
down.
Oh my gosh, 2057. Ooh. I'm sweating thinking about it, man, but I think it's possible.
Discipline. We got this.
Right. It's discipline, consistency.
But, yeah, thank you guys so much. Seriously, we really appreciate all the support. Big shout out to Tiffy. And if you guys haven't done so, please consider hitting that subscribe button. That's one of the best ways that you guys will know whenever we are going to release an episode. And again, that's every week, 9 p.m. Central.
You getting a phone call?
Oh, wow, you can hear that?
Yeah, I can hear you vibrating. Yeah. But yeah, if you guys would be able to support us in another way, go to TikTok at the Galactic Window and give us a follow there. We're starting to post clips from past episodes there. So if you haven't seen an episode in the past, but you see a clip that you enjoy, it might be a good way to direct you to a replay, which you can find right here on YouTube or under podcasts on YouTube Music. So we would love your support there as well. If this is your first episode here, first time joining us for an episode every Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. And I know we're coming up here on the time change in just a few weeks. We'll still remain 9 p.m. It just won't be Central Daylight Time. It'll be Central Standard Time. 9 p.m. always. We'll be right here on YouTube.
Taco Bell mukbang.
Yeah, what is
We might
happening in
have
the
to.
chat?
Yeah.
So Tan, I don't know how much we should really spoil here, but we should at least say that next week's episode will be different.
It'll be special. A special guest. Let's just leave it at that. Or just special. Yeah.
Yes, and I would highly emphasize that this is not an episode you're going to want to miss.
Yes.
So we will be. Yeah, I'm really trying to.
Guys, next episode 22 is going to be super gnarly. I guess if there's any time that I would want you guys to watch in a specific episode, please let it be next week. All right? Next Monday, 9 p.m.
Yes, that's the 28th.
That's all.
I believe.
What is
October 28th.
it? Yes.
So tell me to stick a cork in it.
Next week. That's it. No more.
No more.
Alarm set. There you go. Awesome. Now you're curious? You should be, because it's going to be special. I'm also trying to walk on eggshells over here.
I know, right? It's like I'm like chomping at the bit, man, and I'm like, stop me while I'm on top.
Yeah. But
Oh,
yeah, guys, thank
gosh.
you so much. Seriously, really appreciate it.
Definitely. Yeah, you guys, everyone who's tuned in, we had a wonderful audience here tonight, and I just want to extend a big thank you again to Nate for being on the show, and you guys can give him another round of applause in the chat. So drop some clapping emojis.
Yeah.
And go support
also, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off at the
You're
end
good.
there.
I'm done. Go for it.
Just a big shout out to people over on TikTok too. I know some of you guys are watching. I really can't see your comments. If you guys didn't know that, now you know we're streaming on YouTube. So I until we figure out a better way to stream on both simultaneously, this is kind of how we're doing it. So if you're on TikTok, thank you so much for watching. We're basically just streaming this streamception. So again, if you guys are in there, you've been trying to get a hold of my attention. Sorry, I haven't been paying attention, but now that you know, you can always hop over here to YouTube, and that way you can hang out in the chat, and we will see your comments. But just wanted to say thank you for watching over there as well.
Agreed. All right, y'all. Time to call it a night. Thank you for tuning in to episode 21, and we'll see you in the next one, episode 22, mystery episode.
Yes, do not miss it.
Do not miss it. We'll see you all on the other side.